Hello, I'm Clive King, Malmesbury Pottery. I'm going to show you today, or demonstrate today, hopefully, some basic methods of throwing pottery. It's going to be a simple mug today, but you can see how complicated actually quite a basic item like a mug is when it's thrown on a wheel. So we need to remove the air from the clay, otherwise it will cause it to go off centre when we're actually throwing the vessel. So we just work the clay round like this, so it's like a rotation, so you get this sort of cone shape. So that's it, that's basically ready to go. So once you've weighed out the clay to the appropriate size and weight, we start the throwing process. The throwing process involves just literally throwing the clay into the centre of the wheel. So, and that's all the throwing there is. That's how it derives its name. From now on, we need to make sure that this clay is rotating in the centre. And as you can see, it's not. So in order to make sure this is running smoothly, I need to wet my hands, both hands, just to lubricate the clay. Keep my forearms anchored firmly on the side of the wheel, and then compress the clay from both sides. And slightly downward pressure. I'll use my thumb for that to make sure that the clay sticks to the wheel. Once you've done this, remove the clay, press the clay up and down. Causes it to centre. In order to open up the clay, I use my thumb on my right hand and support the clay with my left hand and press through the axis of the ball of clay, not going too far, otherwise you'll go through the bottom, and then just gradually work the clay out from the centre. Smooth it out to the diameter you require, using a sharp pointed knife, that we haven't left too much clay in the base or too little. And that's about right, it's about 5mm depth. And then we need to bring this wall up. I just squeeze the clay between my two fingers there. And then I swap my left hand into the inside, my right hand on the outside, and I use these opposing fingers here to bring the rest of the clay up. As you can see, it's reached the height that I need. Open it up a little bit, smooth off the rim, smooth off the outside, just get that shape right. The edge is really quite rough down here and you can't get your fingers right into the corner, so I just use the edge of this little tool here to go into the corners. So you've got a nice neat edge. And then you can see on my throwing where my fingers have made these rings here, which I don't really want in this instance on the pot because it's going to have a logo on it which shows what school it's from. So I want a smooth pot, so we just use that to smooth it off. Put a bit of water on the base to make sure we can lift it off properly, and I'll wire it through. In this instance I use fishing line actually, just a basic fishing line, and then hopefully this will lift off. And you just place it on a commercial, and I use a commercial tile which is porous on one side and just helps to dry the pot on the base nice and evenly.
going to be another 100 and odd years before the riflemen came in and they could do any sort of sharpshooting. But yeah, very, very simple weapon, and yeah.
They could take things off very, very quickly. So if things like fingers, if they got burnt or anything like that, they would just literally be taken off. We have a chisel, and it's very easy to just pop that over a knuckle, and with a hammer, off it comes. So yes, they could take things off quite easily. The problem was this is what you were going to take it off with. So there's your bone saw, and this is your amputation knife. 2.
In December 1881, Walter Powell took off from the Cross Haze in Malmesbury in his coal gas-filled balloon Saladin with 2 friends, a Captain Templar and a Mr. Ag Gardner, to take some meteorological observations. The trio found themselves being blown off course and passed over Glastonbury, Somerton, Crewkerne and Bridport. In a desperate attempt to prevent themselves being blown out to sea, they were forced to make a rapid descent near Chesil Beach on the Dorset coast. They landed heavily, and Captain Templar and some ballast were thrown out. As the balloon rose suddenly, our gardener was pitched over the side of the basket, crashing to the ground and breaking his leg. Powell stayed in the basket, but the balloon, now much lighter, took off once more. Walter Powell was last seen waving to his companions as the balloon disappeared out to sea. He was never seen again. Walter Powell was born in Newport, Wales, into a very wealthy family. In 1867, Powell rented Dauncey House, a big country house 4 miles southeast of Malmesbury, and lived there with his widowed mother. Within 2 years, he was elected to Parliament as the Conservative MP for Malmesbury. By all accounts, Powell was a diligent and popular MP. Indeed, in the 1880 election, he was elected after gaining more than 2/3 of the votes cast. But it is as a balloonist that he is remembered. On Sunday the 21st of May 2017, the renowned explorer and Lord Lieutenant of Wiltshire, Sir David Hempleman Adams, attempted to launch a hot air balloon from the Cross Hays, with Conservative MP James Gray riding in the basket, to commemorate Walter Powell's 1881 hot air balloon launch from the very same spot 136 years prior. Malmesbury marked the balloon launch attempt with 3 days of fun-filled celebrations, including a special lecture, guided walks and family entertainment, with all funds raised going to the Friends of Athelstan Museum for the special renovation of the Moravian Church.
We've set the balloon up, we're going to wait for the wind to drop now. Our target takeoff time is going to be 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that all depends on what the wind does in between now and then.
A couple of lines. Great excitement prevailed about 5 o'clock.
GL. And David Hempleman Adams was the first person in history to reach the geographic and magnetic North and South poles.
More the merrier. And these are all little stands doing things, are they?
Certainly be playing when the balloon launches, and they'll be
doing now. And the reason why is that's when you get the best left wind.
Flying up right there, you can see it now. The reason it lets that off is to check up on the turbulence. Because once the balloon's up, it's about 80 feet in the air, and if it's turbulent wind up there, it'll drag the balloon into the town hall or into the lampposts or into somewhere else. So he's trying to find as little turbulence as possible.
May you fly so high and so well that God will join you in laughter.
Be disappointed, really.
Very disappointed, but there's a saying in ballooning: it's better to be on the ground wishing you're in the air than if you're in the air wishing you're on the ground. And that's one of those occasions. It was very marginal, and Clive is one of the best pilots I know, and he did his best, but it was just slightly too thermic, and it was a very, very tight spot and trying to get out with these lampposts. So if we had a hacksaw and we got rid of those lampposts, it would have worked.
So you'll be back again in June for another attempt?
I think the attempt in another couple of weeks, and we'll give it another go, yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
One of the most flamboyant characters in Malmesbury during the last 3 decades of the 20th century and the first decade of the 21st century was the artist Peter Harris. Peter Barton Harris was born on the 23rd of April 1923 in Bristol. His father was a watchmaker and a jeweller, not a lucrative profession in the depression of the 1920s and the 1930s. Fortunately for the young Harris, his mother sought out the best primary school possible, and if he was not very intellectual, he was a solid worker and won a scholarship to the local public school known then as Colston's Hospital. A new art teacher encouraged his students to draw each other and to work from still life arrangement. Harris's talent blossomed. At the end of his stay, he won free admission to the West of England Art Academy. Money was tight, but his father was determined that since he won a scholarship, he should see it through. The teaching was formal and traditional, with a great accent on draftsmanship. The budding students drew from the naked model and still life. The war interrupted Harris's training, but since he had a National Diploma of Arts, he was called up as an airman, having to choose between either being a wireless mechanic or a special policeman. He chose the former and left Bristol, which was being bombed on a nightly basis, for the peace and quiet, first of all of Northern Ireland, and then India. At the time he was annoyed that his training had been interrupted, but in later life appreciated that it gave him the taste for travel and for the East. He spent 3 years in India travelling between Bombay, Delhi, Agra and the far north to Quetta, soaking up the very rich and diverse cultures of the subcontinent. He joined the RAF and he was a wireless mechanic out in India, which strikes me as being quite bizarre.
It was bizarre because the last person I could have thought we could have competently dealt with wireless was Peter. You know.
At the end of the war, he was demobbed relatively early, since he was training to become a teacher and teachers were in short supply. He was soon back at the art college to complete his diploma years.
All the young men and boys we were with, they would do the first 2 years and then go away to the forces and then come back again to do the final. So in our final year, the 5th year, Peter and some of the others who'd been called up earlier were coming back and he joined our group, so we got to know him. He was a legend before he got there. I mean, as were a couple of the others. And so we look forward to meeting these legends from the past, as it were, you know. And he settled in, and we had a hilarious sort of final year there, you know, before we all went our separate ways.
He secured his first post as a lecturer at the Swindon College of Art, being paid the rich sum of £7 per week. Student numbers were poor, and the examination results even worse. To supplement his earnings, Peter took to teaching an evening class of 21 students with ages ranging between 15 and 60.
Peter went to Swindon to begin with, to Swindon College of Art, for a short while, and then he sort of disappeared off the scene.
Spare time was spent cycling around the area from Oxford to Marlborough, trying to escape from the drab, cold, ugly and depressing Swindon. In need of a change and remembering the sunshine and beauty of the tropics, Peter applied for a job illustrating a newspaper in Africa to help the population to read. He was not successful, but clearly made an impression upon those who interviewed him, because shortly after he received a letter asking if he'd like to work as an art superintendent in Malaya. This was an easy one for Peter.
And then he sort of disappeared off the scene, and then we discovered afterwards that he'd gone to the Far East, to Malaysia and Borneo.
With the job secured, he was given the task of learning Malay within a year, and a reservation on a luxury liner sailing from London later that month. When he arrived in Penang, he was met by an education officer who had no idea of what the job entailed. A Miss Clements came to his rescue. She was a general primary school inspector and helped secure a small but valuable sum of money to purchase materials, and Peter then embarked upon a series of 2-week courses in art in primary schools for teachers in Kuala Lumpur. 1951, he suddenly becomes the art superintendent for Malaya.
That's right, and that's what he got his award for, the ME.
Yeah.
And then he moved from Malaya into Borneo. I mean, he just loved it over there, you know, loved the people, loved the life, had lots of friends, and obviously brought the art life of that area together, you know. And
the next few months were spent travelling around the country, running courses, distributing materials. This was a very happy time for Peter, although travelling was dangerous, and he made a point of not carrying a gun and travelling some distance behind the convoy in the belief that bandits would not want to waste time and ammunition on a totally unimportant target. Just before his arrival, the governor of the city of Raub had been shot. These were dangerous times. Many of the secondary schools had teachers trained in art education in China. They were extremely skillful and gained excellent results in the Cambridge O-level examinations. But Peter believed that art education in schools should be more than that. Students should be encouraged to develop creative ideas, widen the creative thought process, and to express their personal ideas in as many ways as possible. And was much revered as well, because he set up the Wednesday group.
Yes, that's right.
In 1952, and was invited back years later.
Yes.
To go and see their work.
And there was one. I mean, basically, Peter was a painter and a draftsman, but there was one piece of work on a building there which he designed, a sort of a large, I suppose, metal sculpture almost. On the building, which was his one and only, as far as I know, sort of forage into 3D, apart from a bit of pottery he did from time to time. But
he organised evening classes and encouraged participants to bring in as many different examples of painting and drawing as they could find. The sessions were fun, and gradually more people started to attend. Peter painted and drew with them and encouraged them to develop their own skills. The growing group would often venture out into the countryside sketching, because Peter had a firm belief that drawing was an essential basis for artistic output. The British Council kindly lent the group the use of a hall, and the first public exhibition was held. It was extremely successful, and many of the works of art were sold. The success brought new recruits. Indeed, The success of the group, together with Peter's promptings, convinced the government to create a small but very important national picture gallery, supported by funds from the Arts Council in the first instance. In 4 years, the work from the Wednesday Art Group had spread throughout the country, inspiring teachers to teach natural expression to the very young in schools, and encouraging the country to open up art galleries and develop an appreciation of the values of art in Malaya. Peter became the first head of the Art Teacher Training Centre in Kuala Lumpur, but soon realised that his ideas were far too much set in the past. He recognised from the beginning that his job was, effectively, to do himself out of a job, and that this was the time to leave. Rather than return to the cold greyness of England, Peter decided to head east across the border through Thailand into Cambodia. But Cambodia was a troubled country, and although Peter was able to spend some time in the temples of Angkor Wat, he found that Phnom Penh was in the throes of civil disturbance, and so had to take a taxi to Saigon. From there he travelled to Hong Kong and then on to Japan, before making his way back to England. For 6 months he painted and had a one-man show in a Bond Street gallery, but then he received a letter asking if he'd like to go to Borneo to a teacher training college. He was employed to teach in the Sabah Teacher Training College. Staff and pupils were charming and came from a wide range of backgrounds. Tuition was in English. The pupils were all eager to learn, and Peter was faced with a major dilemma. In a rapidly changing country, should he be encouraging the next generation of artists to look back at their culturally rich past, or forward to develop skills that would fit with the fast-changing world of the new Borneo? He was asked to produce an art syllabus and purchase and distribute materials to schools, not only in the towns and cities, but also out in the jungle. During college breaks, he was able to visit jungle schools and travel through the jungle on various inspection tours. He loved these journeys, walking and climbing through the hills and jungle, stressing the importance of displaying children's work on the walls of the school, assuming the schools had walls. He found the experience of visiting such schools strange and noble. The villages were only one generation away from headhunting. At the entry to most of the settlements there would be a small house on stilts containing offerings to placate the gods. These offerings often included a skull or two. Looking at a lot of his painting, well, his charcoal and pastels work, it's a beautiful way in which he frames faces and people and time.
Yes, I've got two on my wall, and I was looking at them before I came out, and a very free style, it wasn't a sort of tight drawing, which is very different from, for example, Robin Tanner's style, But, yes, it was, he seemed to be able to do that with absolute perfect ease, and it was a style which stayed with him all the time. I mean, some artists develop styles and move from one to another, but as far as his drawings were concerned, I think that stayed as it was.
A training college was now built, and Pete was asked to design the art room, which was a great success. He organised courses and, together with local teachers, made puppets from clay, made kites and masks, and carved from local wood. Although he was not employed as a supervisor, that became very much part of his work. At the end of one of his courses, a teacher from the jungle school said, "We don't want to go back to the jungle. We want modern things." Peter realised that those students were the spearhead of the irresistible modernisation of the country. His work complete, he bade farewell to Borneo and returned to England a little richer, but now unemployed. Back in England, Peter was awarded the MBE for his work in education overseas.
The first job he got back here was in a comprehensive school in Bristol, which I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the rather rough areas of Bristol, and I think that was a complete culture shock as far as he was concerned,
After an eventful spell, he moved on to Sheldon School in Chippenham, where he was soon promoted to be head of the art department.
I mean, his one ambition, apart from his artwork, as I knew him, was to buy King's House in Malmesbury. And he wanted to do that for as long as I could think, which of course he did eventually. I was quite surprised when he sort of gave it up and moved to the house in Gloucester Street, but that was Peter Foyle. You know, he sort of changed his mind, I suppose. And
he retired after 10 years and settled down in the schoolhouse with his partner, David Richardson, opposite Malmesbury Abbey, painting and exhibiting in a small way. One of his most celebrated exhibitions was held in a gallery in Bath, where he displayed a series of paintings, mostly watercolour and ink, dealing with dreams and fantasy. He was a very flamboyant character and a very witty character. And I think that comes through in some of his later works, the dream sequences and some of the little sketches.
Yes, Peter was flamboyant, personified, you know, particularly at art school and things like that. But on the other side of that, there was a sort of sensitivity and almost self-questioning with him all the time, you know, and his character was very volatile. I mean, he could get very down and depressed in moments, and but otherwise he was very generous, very generous person, and influenced by all sorts of different ideas and people. I mean, he came back to England saying he was a confirmed Buddhist. But I mean, that sort of influence wore away, you know, and eventually, of course, by the time of his death, he was a Catholic. Yes.
If Peter was looking to a quiet retirement, he was to be mistaken. In 1996, Mr. Yo Jin Leng, writing a book about the development of art in Malaysia, tracked him down and persuaded the National Art Gallery to fly Peter out to Kuala Lumpur to take part in an exhibition celebrating the work and influence of the Wednesday Art Group. Peter was reacquainted with many of his old students and was able to witness firsthand the celebration of Malaysian art on show. Peter spent the last few years quietly sketching and painting, enjoying Malmesbury and his lovely house. Tell us about his house, the Gloucester Road house, the schoolhouse.
Oh, the schoolhouse, yes. That was great fun because he decided he was going to paint it. So he painted things all the way up the stairs, lovely murals up the stairs and down the stairs, you know. And that again, he had a lovely room at the back which he used as a studio, which was full of all his work and his you know, his other paintings and drawings and things, stacks and stacks of them. And but they'd spent a lot of time, he and David, sort of sanding shutters and making everything really nice, you know. I mean, it was literally a bit of a tip when he bought it, you know. All the rooms that mattered, you know, that they were perfect. And,
but the staircase painting was wonderful because it looked out over mountains and
that's right.
And yes. I can remember he painted a fly with a shadow on it, and used to take great pleasure in seeing people try to swat it away as they went upstairs.
Yes, I know. Yes.
And then above that, the sequence of mice.
That's it.
On their way, all with their candle and their night shirts and their little hats.
Going up to the top floor. Yes.
Going up to the top floor, yeah. He died on the 14th of March 2009 after a short illness, but will forever be remembered by those who knew him and enjoyed his company. He was a real character.
Oh, he was absolutely real character, yes.
Well, Malmesbury Felting Group started in 2013 with a group of like-minded people who had actually met on a felting workshop, and we didn't want to stop felting, so we thought we'll meet and see how it goes, and it's been going ever since. We meet fortnightly on a Monday morning between 10 and 1 in the hub at the Town Hall. We've developed our skills over the years. We've had some exhibitions in the Bound Gallery, and we just really enjoy it, and we have tutors in so that we learn more skills, and we use different materials. So, and we just really enjoy a very informal, fun morning.
So I've laid out the original foraged wool, and you can see quite a contrast with the short fibres, and this time we have to lay them so that they are running in the opposite direction. We're using a gauze on top of the fibres here, and then adding warm soapy water, not hot, because if it's too hot it'll start felting too quickly, and the gauze allows the water to soak through into the wool, and then adding soap on top, and it's a combination of the soap, the water, and also eventually the sort of agitation of the fibres that help them bind together, and they will shrink and then start to form felt.
The number of events at the cinema has grown from 2 film screenings per month to over 12. Indeed, in 2016, 123 events were hosted by Movies at Malmesbury, attracting an audience of well over 3,000 people. Content has expanded from simply films and now includes live opera and ballet from the Royal Opera House, drama from the Royal Shakespeare Company in the National Theatre, exhibitions of artwork and music, a recent introduction of pop and rock concerts featuring the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
dignified, you're doing it wrong.
Charlie, climb up there. Charlie, climb up there. And then... That's it, go. Real?
Yeah,
Do you want... Are you going to do it? No grip for that at all. No, you've got to stand on their shoulders.
Straighten one of your legs. Straighten your right leg.
Go. I don't want I just came back when I told anymore. I did it again. I just had to win.
Come on, Alex.
Mary, you knew Robin Tanner, the artist, etcher and printmaker.
Yes, I did. I knew of Robin long before I actually met him, because he was so important in the field of art education and introducing children to the best of the arts world and so on. I remember one day he came over, come and see, I've got something really exciting to show you. This was after we got really to know them well. And he said, you must come and see this, you must come and see this. So over I went. And there was a wonderful picnic basket, and it had been given to him by Hans Coper and Lucy Ree. And they had done all the setting up of this with all their work, their mugs, their plates, everything inside made by them.
Rob, it was while he was at Goldsmiths that he developed his interest in etching.
That's right, yes.
And the work, and was influenced by Samuel Palmer, who was a Victorian Romantic painter. Mm-hmm. And that theme runs through so many of his etchings and his works.
Yes, that's right, yes. He would have his etching plate, and he would cover it with the covering and scratch away at it, then put it in a acid bath with always a white feather to count the number of bubbles that he had to that were cutting into where he'd exposed the metal plate with the stiletto or whatever he was using. And then those would, if he wanted a light area, that would be then covered again with a wax coating so that the acid didn't get to it anymore. And it would go through, up to about 12 stages until he got to the really darkest parts of it. Robin could be quite sharp and quite acerbic at times about things and people that niggled him a bit. But he was never knowingly unkind.
Right. But again, remarkably talented artists.
Yes.
Very much of North Wiltshire. And
absolutely. I mean,
area.
North Wiltshire was his love, you know. And
different teams. We've got 4 athletes.
Ready? 1, 2.
Let's go,
I'm going to get this one together this time. Go, go!
Between the 25th of March and the 10th of September 2017, over 80 5-foot tall hair sculptures, decorated by a mix of professional and amateur artists, were placed across 28 towns and villages throughout the Cotswolds.
I became involved because there was just an email sort of looking for artists, professional or amateur, to put in applications to dress a hair. So I did that for that reason, but also the charity that's involved is the National Star College, which I actually used to work at as an occupational therapist, so that was my motivator. It was to do with the Cotswolds, the history of the Cotswolds, but also the culture, and another side of it of the landscape, you know, past and present, really, and obviously that involves the significant buildings as well. We reckon there's probably about 20,000 pieces, and most of these are actually cut pieces. Some you can buy as sort of squares, if you like, but a lot of the pieces are actually cut to sort of fit the design. I would be sad to see her go, yes, but she's not mine. And, you know, it's for a brilliant cause, so.
Hi, I'm Sian, and I'd like to introduce you to Hamish, my hair. I became involved with the hair trail scheme because I applied through, they had like an announcement on Make Malmesbury Better on Facebook, and I applied, and Malmesbury Town team chose me to do their hair for them. Hamish is made out of resin and a fiberglass base, and he's 5 foot tall. I came up with the design for Hamish by using the Malmesbury Town team map and logo as a springboard for my ideas. That's why they're circles and these set colours, because this is what they use. We're Michael Thomas Butchers, and this is Hetty, my small hair. She is based on all the vegetables and fruit and herbs that go into the sausages, which is more kind of my new style about food illustration. She's quite fun to do because it was more my style, more colourful than the other hair. However, I had a very loose brief on this one, so I kind of let free and made a really cool pattern.